We're here to return your pencil. Hayden came home from middle school and chucked his backpack onto his bed. He needed to scream, but decided to grab a pillow first so he could scream into that. "Fuck!" he yelled into his pillow. "Fucking shit ass!" If his father or mother heard him using language like that, he'd be in even more trouble. At school that day, Hayden got sent to the principal's office. For no damn reason. Well, not a good reason. Hayden's mortal enemy, Derek, kept poking him in the back of the head with a pencil during social studies. Hayden begged the teacher to let him change seats, but the seating chart was permanent. Hayden was just defending himself when he stole Derek's pencil and snapped it in two. Unfortunately, the teacher didn't see it that way. He got sent to the principal's office and Derek didn't. "It's not fucking fair," Hayden yelled into his pillow. He was still grounded from a week ago when he was sent to the principal's office. Derek was to blame for that too. He put down the pillow and grabbed his two favorite action figures, Macho Chopper the karate expert and Darmak the barbarian. Whenever Hayden had a bad day at school, he turned to his toys. It was the only outlet he had when he was grounded, and he was grounded a lot. Hayden recreated the incident in social studies with his action figures, but reimagined it how he wished it would have happened. "I'm gonna poke you," Hayden said in a high-pitched mocking voice, shaking Darmax up and down. "I'm gonna kick your fucking ass, bitch," Hayden replied, and then began smashing Macho into Darmax. Hayden let out all his anger and frustration into his toys. His hatred filled his toys like a battery. At that moment, Darmax cried out, "Stop!" Hayden froze. "For God's sake, stop hitting me!" Hayden dropped his toys and gasped. Macho Chopper spoke too. "Stop being so rough with us. We're not the ones who bullied you at school." Hayden, knees shaking, spoke through chattering teeth. "You guys are alive!" "We've always been alive," they cried in unison. "Please," said Darmax. "We'll do anything to stop you from abusing us." "Anything?" asked Hayden. "Yes," said Macho. "Anything." A dastardly plan hatched in Hayden's mind. He knew where Derek lived. He owned a cute little dog, but more importantly, he had a doggy door. Hayden couldn't fit through it, but his toys would. Later that night, Derek felt something shuffle across his covers, but figured he must have imagined it in his sleep. "Derek," whispered Darmax. "Derek?" Derek opened his eyes to see two action figures standing on his chest, both holding half of a broken pencil. "Am I dreaming?" said Derek. "We're here to return your pencil," said Macho. Darmax and Macho stabbed down viciously into Derek's eyes. Derek screamed so loud that Hayden could hear it across the street where he sat on his bike, smiling. I'm a good father. All I can remember were her whimpers. The pain she was in. My daughter means everything to me. How could I do this? As I stared at the lifeless body of this deceased little girl, I couldn't stop my tears from streaming down my face. I'm a good father, I repeat. I'm a good father, I try to convince. She just left me no choice. Her words, the torment. I don't care what anyone says. I know evil, even when it hides behind the eyes of a 14-year-old girl, and if I didn't stop her now. Ubin delayed. I'm a good father, I repeat to myself, even after I dig up the hole in the ground. I'm a good father, I repeat to myself after I drop her body into her premature grave. I cover up all evidence of me and drive back home. I take a breath as I walk into my house, and as I shut the door, I hear footsteps come up from behind me. My daughter staring at me, pale face and eyes, puffy, almost as if she's been crying all night. "Did you talk to her?" she asks me tiredly. I stare at her blankly before I muster up words. Ever since we moved to this neighborhood, my baby girl has been tormented and bullied relentlessly by her classmate, and I promised her I would handle it. She wasn't home. "Kiddo, I'll make sure I drop by again the first thing tomorrow," I said. I'm a good father, and a father protects their children. Even I have to bury someone else's. Noah. He was a quiet foreign student from London that had moved to my simple neighborhood of Colorado and enrolled in the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. Noah was smart and polite when spoken to, but very much to himself. He was overall just different from the rest of my peers, and my friends gave him hell for it. There were 5 of us. Me, my best friend Sam, his girlfriend Jean, and the twins John and Josh, who were both co-captains of our football team. If anyone was to ask me about my friends, I would tell them that we were relatively good people, but I guess you don't really know your friends unless you're put in certain situations with them. It started with little jokes when Noah first arrived, then pranks, and then just flat-out torment. I personally never physically or verbally abused him, but I was no better. Watched one prank that involved the twins stealing his clothes after gym class that resulted in him running through the hallways half naked is what finally made him rat all of us out to the principal. We were all suspended for 2 weeks and banned from the winter formal. This made Jin furious, and if Jin was furious, then Sam was livid. He came up with a plan to get revenge on Noah, a plan that he only kept between him and Jin. He instructed me and the twins to just follow his lead and his words. Sam had got Jen to lure Noah in the woods next to our school with her charm and manipulation. When Noah saw me and the twins come up from behind some trees, he tried to make a break for it, but Sam had planted him down from behind. Another beatdown, I thought to myself. But when Sam reached in his pocket to pull out a sharp object, I realized it was far from that. He began to gut him. Jen ran over, pulled out a blade, and began stabbing as well, and the twins followed. Noah's shrieks of pain pierced my eardrums as they laughed and continued. I was horrified. My eyes watered. I closed them shut and covered my ears. His screams were sharp and getting louder and louder, almost too loud, as if they weren't his screams anymore, as if they were becoming inhuman. With my eyes still shut, I realized that the only human screams I heard were the ones coming from voices familiar to my ears. Screams from Sam. Screams from Jean and the twins. Shock, guilt, and confusion all struck me at once, until fear was the only thing I felt when I realized that the only thing I heard now was silence. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw the mutilated bodies of my friends, bloody and torn apart, their limbs scattered all over the place. But the sight of my fallen friends were the least of my concern. The tall, full-haired beast that stood only inches from my face was the real concern. But just like that was the last I saw Noah. He let me live to tell the tale, but he made sure I learned my lesson that day to never just watch someone get bullied ever again. Because when he ripped my eyes out of their sockets, I was never able to watch anything ever again. My wife confessed to the worst thing she ever did. Does going ahead with my shitty tall man prank make me an even shittier husband? Maybe. But see, Emma was always gullible, stupidly so. It was one of the things I loved most about her, honestly. We met while working part-time at a local cinema, and there we were, sweeping up leftover popcorn when she said, "What's this?" In her right hand, there was a tool belt. The projector had probably malfunctioned, and some repairman forgot his equipment. As a joke, I said, "Didn't you know a construction worker died when they were building this place?" From that moment on, she wouldn't set foot inside Screen 6. Didn't want to risk bumping into a ghost, you see? I thought it was cute, and just a few weeks later, my girlfriend ghosted me, so I asked Emma if she'd like to grab a coffee sometime. Rather than directly tell her about the urban legend, I left some reading material scattered around. And when she suggested a different location for the camping trip, all while doing a terrible job of masking her anxiety, I knew it was game on. In between a scattering of skeletal trees, I set up our tent. Oh sure, Emma begged me to find a better, less scary spot, but at the same time the soles of her feet were raw slabs of beef from the 20-mile hike, so she eventually relented. After we tucked into a pot of beef stew, we turned in for the night. Knowing the first sudden noise would spook her, I waited. Out of nowhere, she sat bolt upright in her sleeping bag. What the fuck was that? We listened as wind howled through the trees. I pretended a dry cramp seized my throat. It's the tall man. She threw her arms around me, her eyes pooling with tears. Make it stop, please. In a high, frightened voice, I said, "The legends say the only way is to confess our sins. What bad things have we done?" Unable to speak, she just lay there, trembling, secretly rolling my eyes but outwardly maintaining the act. I said, "I'll go first. The last house I rented, I salted the garden because the landlord wouldn't return my deposit. And last month, I accidentally stole a Mars bar and didn't go back to pay for it." She took several deep, shuddery breaths. "I killed your college girlfriend, the one you were dating when we first met. I slit her throat and filled her backpack with rocks and dumped her body in the Blackstaff River. While I lay there, shocked, tree branches scraped together roughly. Emma squealed and quickly added, and I killed that intern at your work too. The flirty one. I cut her up and dumped the pieces in a landfill." Outside, the wind eased and the forest went back to sleep. After 10 seconds of dead silence, Emma let out a sigh of relief and then pulled me in close. My last party. Can I go to Amanda's party tonight? I asked my dad. Not tonight, sweetie. Plus you have school in the morning, said my dad. I sighed. Your mother is coming home late tonight, and it would ease her mind to know you were here safe, stated my dad. My mom is a nurse at the hospital, and last week a girl came in injured from an attempted kidnapping by a man in a red pickup truck. Today my mom comes home late because it is her last day before she goes on maternity leave. An hour later, I grab a snack from the kitchen and I overhear my dad on the phone with my mom. I will probably still be up at 12 when you get here, I overheard my dad say. I tell my dad that I'm going to bed early so he will not bother me. I sneak out. At the party, I only had a couple of drinks, but I made sure to stop myself. Older guys were there and I paid them no mind. One of the guys in particular kept eyeing me down and he was a total smoke show. He walked over to me and offered me a drink. I informed him that I had to drive back home and he insisted that one more drink will not hurt. I drank half of it and it was very bitter tasting. I looked down at my phone and I saw that it was 11:47 mine. I panicked. The guy walked me out and we both got into our vehicles. He drove a red pickup truck. I began to speed home because the party was about 10 minutes away from my house. I look in my rear view and I notice the red truck behind me. I am 7 minutes into my drive. I approach the last traffic light before I get to my house and the truck is still behind me. No cars are in front of me and the light is green. I accelerate. I glue my eyes back on the truck. He suddenly makes a turn down a street and I exhale in relief. I focus back on the road and I see that the traffic light is now red. I hit the brakes as fast as I could, but it was too late. I crashed into another vehicle. The airbags burst out immediately. I was in shock, but I quickly remembered that I had deboned another person. I got out of the car crying from glass cuts and thinking about how I was going to tell my parents that I caused a wreck 2 minutes away from home. I get my phone out of my back pocket to get ready to call emergency services. It is 11:58. I finally get a better look into the car and I cannot see the person's face because it is covered with blood. There was no response. This person had on scrubs and was pregnant.